Welcome to Block in Order, the show that explores the legal issues facing the world of Web3 and beyond. I'm Kyle Lawrence, and with me, as always, his middle name is ETF, Moish Peltz. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year, Kyle.
That would be something.
And happy ETF Day.
ETF. Yeah, happy ETF Day.
After a false start, we're finally in a world with spot ETFs.
Can you believe it?
Well, yeah, of course I can believe it. This has been like 10 years coming.
It's going to happen eventually. You know, new year, new you, new SEC is the mantra for crypto in 2024.
Hey, it's an election year, so they got to get their act together.
Fair point. All right, Moish, we'll kick us off.
All right. Well, we kind of previewed it already, but the first topic for today is the SEC has approved a Bitcoin spot ETF. So the Securities and Exchange Commission approved this launching with some key players, including BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale. I think a total of 9 applicants were all approved in one shot. So we're recording this on January the 10th, tomorrow, January 11th. I believe at 9:30 a.m., you're going to be able to buy at one or all of these 9 new spot ETFs in your 401k, in your IRA, without any further pain, no self-custody, no whatever else you need to do. So Kyle, how do you think the introduction of the Bitcoin ETFs is going to impact the potential for other ETFs down the road?
It's a great question, and I hate to be that guy, but just so we don't get skewered in the comments, it was 11 total applicants.
Was it 11?
So I'm the commenter now, and I'm that guy. You guys don't know what you're talking about.
You're going down, O'Doyle.
Right. So I obviated all of that. I mean, look, man, this is awesome, and you can tell by look at what's happening to the price of Ethereum just after the news of this, which shot up 13% in I think the hour after the news came out. So it's bullish sentiment. It's what we've all been really hoping for, not just the approval of an ETF, just some positive traction in the regulatory space. We've been so just beaten over the head with high profile bankruptcies and just crashes and people losing their life savings in these things. This is just fantastic. I think this is great. I would imagine you feel the same way. And I'd be curious to get your take on, as more of a crypto native than I am, and you're more plugged into the space with your background. What do you think is the next hurdle if we could be so bold to even predict what the next thing would be?
Well, yeah, I think definitely the question is going to be: are there other alternative crypto assets like Ethereum, like Solana, like some of these other major coins or tokens? Are they going to be listed next? What's their timeline like? People are estimating kind of mid-year. I don't know if that's realistic or not, or is this kind of open the floodgates? I'm really curious. I think from a pricing perspective, I think the news was basically baked in. But I think the more interesting question is, now that you have institutional players like BlackRock and Fidelity that now have a vested interest in these products.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are to them. They're products like anything else they're listing. They're not decentralized crypto assets that they're running a node and are in the decentralized ethos, right? So how does the idea that you're going to have billions of dollars of investor money flowing into this asset class, sponsored by these massive institutional sponsors, how's that going to jive with the idea that this is a self-custody asset? This is something you can run a node on. This is something that you can mine. Even though those things are more difficult, those are still possible. So how do you balance those two philosophies?
Mm-hmm. Listen, that's a lot to unpack in there, and a lot of great questions. I think it's interesting that it takes companies the size of BlackRock to get this through. And in reading Gensler's, I don't even know what you call it. At this point, it was like a dissent kind of thing.
I think
but
mea culpa.
Mea culpa. But he can't just let people have their day. He's got to poo-poo the whole thing. And
he was the deciding vote. He was the third vote in favor.
Right, but then he comes out immediately and just throws cold water on everything and saying this doesn't mean we approve of these products and you still have to be and all that nonsense. And I don't need to get into it now. But what I love about this specifically is that this is not a futures ETF, which has already been approved. This is a spot ETF. And what that means, just for people watching, is that if I'm a retail investor, I don't actually have to buy Bitcoin. I don't have to go through the rigmarole, if I'm unfamiliar with it, of going on a Coinbase and opening an account, linking my bank account, doing all those things. I can just buy shares in this ETF, and the value of my shares go up and down as the price of Bitcoin goes up and down, because it holds the Bitcoin. And that's a great thing for the introduction of more people into the space, which is what we all want.
It's so much better for investors.
So much better.
It's criminal that investors have had to hold these futures-based ETFs for the past few years. It's just, it's terrible. So this is great. It's good for investors. Yeah. That's what the SEC is supposed to be in the business of doing. So congrats, SEC. Good job.
Surely we'll have all great things to say about our friend, the Night King, Gary Gensler, as we go forward with the rest of the episode. Well, it's not always sunny in Philadelphia, because our friend Logan Paul is in the news. The famous YouTube influencer had started this a BCS project called CryptoZoo. And CryptoZoo is a blockchain-based game where people could buy in-game currency called zoo tokens that they could convert into eggs, and the eggs would hatch into animals that they could crossbreed with other animals, and there were rarity features, all that kind of stuff. And you could then take the crypto that you earned in the game, cash it out for fiat currency. Well, lo and behold, the game was never properly developed. The people that did use it claimed that there was no way to cash out or even hatch their eggs. The whole thing was just a mess. So what came out recently was that Logan Paul had launched a buyback program whereby he would commit over $2.3 million to repurchase any NFTs or tokens that people had bought vis-a-vis the project. And the program was sought to compensate people who intended to engage with the game. He was very sorry about it. He, did the whole "I'm so sorry, this is not what I intended" kind of thing. Do you think that he was doing this out of the kindness of his heart? Do you think he was doing it because the SEC was so aggressive? What do you think really happened here?
Well, I don't think people ever, buy back $2.3 million of something out of the kindness of his heart. I think this is a move to, it's probably on the one hand, to reduce liability, probably both from a civil kind of perspective. You don't want the people that bought these NFTs and lost lots of money to now go after Logan Paul. So what can we do to reduce the liability? Let's implement a buyback program. I also think it's just a pure PR thing, right? Like he
that's what I think.
Sold some NFTs and people are angry at him and say, all right, I'll make it right. I'll make it right.
Right.
So I think there's probably a little bit of both of that. I do think, though, it might be. I mean, you look at the SEC enforcement actions against Stoner Cats and against Impact Theory.
Great point. Yep.
And I think that the two themes that were running through both those decisions is that they had a buyback program, or they had some sort of remediation plan. Mm-hmm. And the SEC gave them extra credit for that. They said, that's we're not going to come down as hard on you as we otherwise would have because you did this.
Right.
So look, maybe that's something that factored into the thinking.
A little background on some of the history of how this unfolded was originally a company called CoffeeZilla had come out and reported that the whole thing was a scam, and they skewered him publicly. And his initial reaction was not unlike some rather prominent figures in the United States government, where he didn't accept a responsibility for it, and he blamed them for just trying to hurt his reputation. And then he has since deleted that video and deleted that, all that kind of stuff. So now he come out. So my cynical view is that $2.3 million is, change that you would find in the couch cushions for Logan Paul. And he's doing this just to avoid some bad PR. But I don't want to slander him. I'm sure he has good intentions. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And I'm sure he's watching this as well. So sorry, Logan. But
I think we're kind of in this. This will kind of get to our next topic. We're kind of in the NFT shutdown M&A meta.
Yeah.
So, let's use that as a segue into our next topic. The Lazy Lions NFT project announced in their Discord channel that their leadership team would be stepping down, and they would be looking for a new operating team that would purchase the entire project and continue to operate it. I was hoping they would do this in the format of like Willy Wonka and like have 6 NFT investors come into the NFT factory and see the Oompa dance around. But instead, there's a structured bidding process where they're gonna solicit interested parties, give them an information packet, I presume under NDA or whatever, and then have an offer deadline where people are going to make their highest bids, and so it's like a structured auction. So Kyle, what do you think of this auction process, and is this the new meta for turning over an NFT project?
Right. Well, full disclosure, just for everybody watching.
Oh no.
This is
So
my
sad.
Lazy Lion.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
I love
We should have made a bid. I think the block and order viewers
would
have enjoyed the drama of us trying to run this project.
I'm curious to see how much interest this has. I think the offer deadline, I believe, is next Friday, and then they have a rolling multi deadline and process. But this is interesting because they could have just raised the white flag, as a lot of these projects do. Lazy Lions at a time was a very valuable project that, was certainly in the top 10 for a while. The most valuable one ever was sold for, at the time, 99 ETH, which was 350,000 at the time. So, it's not nothing, but as, interest, in the NFT space has waned, a lot of the more prominent projects have not been able to keep up. Some have, but not all of them have. I happen to love Lazy Lions because I love animals and I love what they were doing for lion rescue and lion preservation. But putting my personal feelings aside, I think this is an interesting step in the sort of M&A process, because they're using the tools that they have. They're using Discord, they're using their base. And we know that with NFT projects and with crypto in general, that participants in the ecosystem are excited about it and they believe in it. And I think if you open up this kind of opportunity to your participants, you're going to get some people who are probably really interested in it and could potentially do a really good job. What I would be curious about is how you value something like this. Yeah.
Well, is this more like a participatory community-based acquisition, or is this more like almost like a structured bankruptcy auction? Yeah. Right. I think it's more like the latter, the way they set it up. Maybe it will result in a community member buying it. And they said they had interest. I think it makes sense, right? It's like if you have several interested offers and like, well, we've got a couple offers. What happens if we just told everyone, hey, we're selling this thing? I think it's an interesting way to do it and try and get more money fundamentally, or maybe not even get more money. But I think one of the things they said, and we'll see, who they select as the buyer is, well, highest amount isn't necessarily the most important factor here. It's finding someone that is, philosophically aligned to the community, that's going to be a good shepherd for the project.
Exactly. And that's what I mean with, obviously it can be, on the first step towards a bankruptcy and just liquidating the whole thing. But by opening it up to your base, you can at least potentially get somebody who would be willing to do it. And let's face it, this isn't going to be a $40 million acquisition at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's certainly more creative than just shutting down or just selling to an investment fund or something.
Because they could easily just flip the switch, cash out, and walk away, and nobody would be able to do anything about it. So,
all right. So turning to our next topic, the Southern District of New York federal judge Rakoff has ruled in favor of the SEC against Terraform Labs and its co-founder Do Kwon. The court granted the SEC summary judgment and ruled that Terraform offered and sold unregistered securities, namely in the form of the stablecoin Terra USD and the related Luna and its related coins. So the court ruled that all these tokens were part of investment contracts and thus were securities. And there was, however, a small siding with Terraform regarding some swaps, and the fraud claims were denied summary judgment. So those claims will go to a jury trial. So Kyle, what do you think this ruling signifies for the classification of digital tokens as securities now in 2024?
I'm certainly not surprised. We've talked about different tokens and different projects being classified as securities. And just for people watching, it's not the thing you're selling, it's the manner in which you sell it. It's an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit derived from the efforts of others. I've come around a little bit, because originally we were like, oh my God, this isn't a security. What are we talking about here? But we've all seen what the SEC has been doing over the past couple of years. We all know what their approach is going to be. That even today with the Bitcoin ETF, Gensler's coming out and he's openly saying this: we're not going to change our tune on these things. It's like when I'm driving down Hillside Avenue, I think it's kind of BS that I get a speeding ticket because there's no cop there, but there's somebody taking a picture of me and poof, I get a ticket in the mail. But guess what? I know it's the law, fair or unfair. That's the way it is. And I think that projects and issuers and offers of these types of cryptocurrencies, they can't play babe in the woods anymore. It's not going to work. They have to understand that this is going to happen. I don't care who you are. And quite frankly, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I know Do Kwon, likes to unleash his army of professional botherers on people who deign to question him. Little Schadenfreude never hurt anybody on a Wednesday. You're a litigator, though. I'd ask you, what are the potential implications of the upcoming jury trial for Terraform Labs and the crypto industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to see if they end up taking this to a jury trial on just the fraud claims, or if that motivates the parties to somehow settle out the rest of them, or position it for appeal without the jury trial. I don't know. I think of the different Southern District of New York SEC securities enforcement actions. This was like the most obvious one that, like the way that they were marketing the Terra and Luna ecosystem, and the way you could like invest these products and then like guarantee to make a return. It was all like marketed as like, hey, put in money so you can make way more money, very overtly.
And it was Terra 2.0, right? They were doing the airdrops for people who, come on.
Yeah, but even like Terra, like the stablecoin getting put into Anchor, and that resulting in like just like they were marketing it just so aggressively as like guaranteed income. It just always felt that it always kind of tickled me the wrong way, even at the time of the way they were marketing it. And if you read the ruling, right, there's just so many just ridiculous statements that if you were trying to defend this project, it's like, oh God, I can't believe that they said this kind of statements. And those are, of course, what's going to be in the summary judgment ruling in the SCLI. So
Dokman got extradited, right? I think he was in Montenegro or something, and I think they agreed to send him back here.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's trying to track which like founder under what indictment is located at any moment of time. I hope someone's made like a tracker map, like the kid who has the Elon Musk jet app or something.
That's or the Shohei Ohtani plane. That's right. That's you know what? I bet it exists. I bet if we find it, we'll put it in the show notes. We'll link to it. That's right. All right. Turning to our good friends at Celsius. Obviously, everybody knows about the Celsius bankruptcy that's crowded the the news over the past year. But Celsius is something interesting happened in here recently. Moish, Celsius is addressing the issue of fund withdrawals made by account holders within the 90-day period before the bankruptcy filing. So what's happening here is anybody who withdrew over $100,000 during that 90-day period before the filing, they're now obligated to return 27.5% of the withdrawn amount, which would allow the creditor to avoid lawsuits and remain eligible for future reorganization plan distributions. Anybody who was under the $100,000 mark is not required to do anything. So, pretty interesting whether you saw the writing on the wall or not. Maybe you just took $100,000 out because you wanted to buy a car or braces for your child. Well, guess what? You got to return some of that money. Have you ever seen anything like this? I forget about crypto. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Have you?
I think this is a very ordinary. Well, so, ordinarily what happens is anyone that there's like a fraudulent transfer window. So if you right. Yeah. Right. The bankruptcy filing, and then you have like a look back for, I think typically 90 days before filing, and anyone that took out money of the estate in that period ordinarily has to just like give it all back.
But isn't that contingent on public information?
There's all sorts of defenses, right?
Yeah.
Neither one of us is a bankruptcy attorney. But there's arguments on both sides, right? It's like, okay, you took out money right before the filing. That money should be your money. That should be part of the company, right? That's the thinking. And so ordinarily, the bankruptcy estate would go after all of those people that took money out. Say, hey, that's money that should go back into the bankruptcy estate and then be distributed pro rata to everyone that is entitled to money. Now here, there's like tens of thousands of people that are creditors, and some of them took out money, some of them didn't, some of them did it for ordinary reasons, some of them didn't. It's like whatever. Some people saw the writing on the wall, as you said. Some people probably just randomly took it out. So how does the court like parse through like tens of thousands of people that are doing this thing?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, okay, this makes sense. It's like a settlement. It's like a amnesty program, right? It's like, well, all right, under $100,000, just walk away free. Which is, I think, thinking about like the people that did take $100,000 out before, like that's probably the right result.
Yeah.
It's like, and now it's been a couple of years, so like, how many people are just like not going to be able to get that money back, anyways?
Right. That's exactly right.
So right, but then people that took out more than that can now choose, to return 27.5% and to basically settle their claim. Mm-hmm. So it seems like a pretty interesting, but obviously it doesn't cover everyone. There's going to be people that are going to be kind of stuck in the cracks that, for whatever reason, they have more than $100,000 and 27.5 isn't the right result for them for whatever reason.
Right.
Or they were entitled to have that money or some other justification. That would be so everyone's going to have to kind of look at that.
I mean, and you have to assume that these people, like, that money is spent. It's not, John Q. Public doesn't have $30,000 sitting around in a rainy day fund. I mean, some people do, but most people don't. So that can be a real problem.
And that's the point of this, right? Is like, and where it gets interesting is the big institutional players like hedge funds and private equity and, just high net worth people that had millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in Celsius.
Yeah.
And for them, I assume like, oh, here's 27, and like I think there's going to be a more complicated process for them.
Right. Can I complain about bankruptcy lawyers for a minute? Can you indulge me for 1 second? Because it's on my mind, and I was reading up on the FTX bankruptcy. I know this is not on the list today. Sorry. So the FTX bankruptcy is very high profile. We all know that. Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the largest law firms in the world. Do you know how much money they billed in 2023 in connection with this bankruptcy? Just take a guess.
Is it $100 million now?
It's $500 million. $500 million with a B. $500 million, Moish. That's $1.4 million per day. Not business day, but every day. Christmas Day.
I thought I knew that, but of course it's.
Why would you know that? You don't know that because it's a ridiculous number. It sounds like I just made it up, but I didn't make it up. And how that is protecting, John Q. Public and these creditors who are trying to get their money out of this ecosystem while these guys are laughing all the way to the bank. I'm sorry. You know what? The scam? Crypto is not the scam. And everybody's like, crypto's a scam and Bitcoin is a scam. And look at the price volatility. No, we're the scam. Lawyers are the scam. That is insanity to me.
Well, you're right. It's not a crypto issue because I remember
right.
Like Lehman Brothers, and I think it was Weil Gotshal billed $1 billion in that bankruptcy, and that's look, it's these are massive, complicated bankruptcies, and it's not just the law firm, right? It's just professional fees. Like there's experts, there's trustees, there's this, there's that. It's hundreds of millions of dollars of
yeah. That's a lot of money.
It is. Well, I read that the FTX one, that the shortfall between, standard, I think it was sometime in December 23, the shortfall between the assets of the bankruptcy estate, so that's how much money is in the pool to distribute, versus like what was owed to people, like so the claimants.
Right.
Like the delta between those numbers, obviously there's less assets to distribute than there are people that are entitled to money. That's why they're in bankruptcy. But that the delta at this point was basically equal to the professional fees. So if you add back in the legal fees, they're now matching up because all of the kind of insane, venture investments that SBF made, like in Anthropic or whatever, have like he's hit the lottery, right? So he like turned $100 million into a couple $1 billion, and like, hey, we got money now, great.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, look, you and I work on complicated things. We don't charge $500 million. It's like the lawyers are, Rose DeWitt Buchater on the door, and the retail investors are Jack Dawson floating to the bottom of the North Atlantic to freeze to death. I'm sorry, it's disgusting.
Hey, but if you have under $100,000, you get to keep your money now.
Then you get to keep your money, right? They get to keep the heart of the ocean in their pocket and then throw it into the water to make themselves feel better and sleep at night. Thank you for indulging me.
Well said.
Well, that wraps it up for the 2024 maiden voyage block and order. Just remember that nothing contained on block and order is meant to be construed as legal or financial advice. If you're going to take the plunge down the rabbit hole, please consult your own attorney and your own representatives. Remember, if you like what we do on block and order, please smash that like and subscribe button. Follow us on all our socials. Links are below down in the show notes. On behalf of Block and Order, I'm Kyle Lawrence.
And I'm Moish Peltz. Have a good one.
So long, everybody.